Money, consumption, status, and power have long driven our culture's pulse. They've shaped our motivations, our behaviors, and our beliefs. But what happens when we give art the same influence? Writers, designers, musicians, photographers, videographers, and the world's most creative minds have the power to heal us, challenge us, and guide us back home to ourselves. In their hands and through their crafts, we find a new world, one where art is a catalyst for powerful change, where self-expression, human connection, and deep empathy are the world's richest assets. This is Art is the New Wall Street, with your host, Morgan Short.
Hey, artists and creatives. Welcome back to Art is the New Wall Street. I'm your host, Morgan Short, and my guest today is Sarah Morris. Sarah is a Minneapolis-based singer-songwriter, and her voice has been compared to Norah Jones for its intimate and velvety quality. I love Norah Jones, by the way. Sarah is a force in the Twin Cities music scene, and her commitment extends beyond performing to penning the interview series about that song for the Adventures in Americana website and hosting Toilet Tunes, which is a YouTube series of under-rehearsed cover songs with her friends that she films right in her Laurel Green bathroom. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hi, Morgan. Thanks for having me.
Sarah, I've been starting recent episodes by asking my guests a dinner party question. Are you down for one?
I sure am.
Okay. Let's say a genie comes to you and plops a binder down, and in the binder is anything anyone has ever said about you. Good, bad, in chronological order, positive and negative things, friends, family, lovers, everything anyone has said about you. You can read that entire binder or nothing at all. What are you going to do?
Gosh, I would sure like to say that I would not read it, but I think I would.
You know, I think I would too.
I think I would.
I like to say that I wouldn't, but I think curiosity would get the best of me. And what about what people have to say about your creative projects, your singing and songwriting? Would you be interested in that?
I mean, when you ask it like that, I think there's a human desire to go and sometimes grab that affirmation, but of course you can't control what you're going to grab. It might not be affirmation. It might be, something that is unkind criticism. So I don't know. I mean, when I'm in my best, most healthy days, I could be like, no, I need it, because I know what I'm doing. But then there are those days when I want to hear that I did okay. Someone tell me. Somebody tell me.
Absolutely. Those words of affirmation. That's one of my love languages for sure. I was reading one of your Adventures in Americana written interviews that you do, and you talk about how there have been a few songs in your life that have been total game changers. Songs that made you want to be a songwriter and songs that you've written that make you feel like a songwriter.
Yeah.
So to start, I want to hear what songs made you want to be a songwriter.
Oh, fun. So for me, when I think about wanting to be a songwriter, the song that kind of changed that for me is Where Have You Been? Sung by Kathy Mattea. It was on a Grammy ceremony. I didn't like country music. At the time that I heard the song, I was mostly Mariah Carey and other early to mid 90s pop. But I was watching the Grammys, and this country singer sang a song called Where Have You Been, which is a love song that takes, do you know it?
I don't actually, no.
It's co-written by three Nashville writers, one who actually has a Minnesota history, and I've never met him, but lots of people in town have. John Besner, but Claire and Edward, and it's their story in three verses. And it's when they meet, and then they're young marrieds, and then they're in the nursing home. And I just remember sobbing and just that sense of being struck by how a song could do that. And that turned my attention to country music in a big way. And so from there, it was deep dive into the love of song.
But you weren't into country music before that song?
Nope. It was the Grammys. It was Kathy Mattea making me sob with this song. So I'm guessing it was 94, 95. And shortly thereafter, I started dating this guy who was really into country. And so that helped. Like he introduced me to all the things, and I ended up marrying him too. So that helped also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But so that was the song that I heard that changed everything for me as like a listener and wanting to be a part of that for other people. And it's funny when I ask people the second question, like, what song did you write that made you feel like a songwriter? So many people are like, well, I still don't always feel like a songwriter. And I get that. But I will say that I feel like a songwriter because I write songs. Like, that's sort of my general premise. Like, is it something I do? Then that's what I am. You know, I'm a runner because I run. I'm a baker because I make bread. I'm a songwriter because I write songs. I'm not talking about the quality of them in any way, shape, or form, you know, but it is the activity I do, so it is my identity. And the song that really shifted myself into an ownership of that was a song I wrote called Sway Me. I belong to this group of people. It's how I met Graham Bramblett, our mutual friend, where we, in the summertime, would write a song a week for 10 weeks. And I joined this group after I'd been a songwriter. I'd lived in Nashville. I'd moved back home. I wasn't writing regularly because I had young kids. And so I joined this group trying to jumpstart my writing again. And in that time, it was week 6 of this group. And the songwriting prompt that we're supposed to write based on a prompt wasn't coming out very early. And I started to entertain a songwriting idea on my own. And I just got so, compelled by needing to finish this song. And the joy of writing that song and the sense of like, oh my God, when it came out, did I write that? I actually really like that. I really love singing that. That was such a big moment for me. So Sway Me is the song that like made me be like, I'm a songwriter. I do write songs. I do this. So.
And I want to talk about that a little bit more because in any art form, you have people that are just like, I am not an artist, or how could I call myself an artist? So
right.
How would you define who a songwriter is?
A songwriter is somebody who writes songs. Mm-hmm. To me, it is that simple. Do you write songs? Are you writing? Are you in, then you're a songwriter. Mm-hmm. I don't mean to say that if you are a person who writes songs, but you're not actively writing at the moment, that you're not a songwriter. We all go through periods where maybe that's not as accessible or present. But if it's in your heart and you ever do it, then I say it's you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so for Sway Me, you were like, I really wrote that song. What was it about that song in particular?
It was catchy in a level, like in a way that I don't think I had gotten before. And I don't know. I remember the week before I'd written a song that was less succinct. I liked it fine, but it was like a total breakup song. And I remember my mother-in-law heard it and like said, oh, well, is everything okay? Or something like that. And I was like, oh gosh, this is part of writing songs, is like, we're going to write songs about whatever. And so then when I wrote Sway Me, which is for sure the sense of the chorus is, I'm halfway here, I'm halfway gone, I can't decide which side I'm on. It's a relationship, like it's sitting in that gray area of a relationship. Mm. And even though I'm very happily married, like there are still times where I think it makes sense that you want your partner to like convince you again to be part, like sometimes you want to be wooed, sometimes you want to be like pulled back in. And so I sang the song and I remember being like, oh, what's my husband going to think? Because probably the reason it made me feel like a songwriter is there was some truth on some level to it. I wasn't like the person in the song is like maybe going to walk out. That wasn't what was happening at all. But, just like a much more mundane version of it. And so I knew he was listening in the other room and I got out and I was like nervous, like, oh, what's he going to say? And he's like, I really liked that. Because get used to it. We're going to write all kinds of songs. They're going to make you question the status of our relationship, but we're good.
You get feedback from those close to you, kind of like questioning what you mean by songs, maybe when you're not in that energy at the moment. You're like, oh, this is just reflecting on an experience that I had. or something, but it's not necessarily something we're going through right now per se.
Right. I'm actually impressed by how little people ask me about that stuff.
Really?
Yeah. I was talking about that with somebody who writes books, and I was just like, nobody asks. And it could be on some level that I do, because I participate in this group. I write a lot of songs and I put them all out there. Pretty much every song I write, people are allowed to see it if they want to see it. It's on YouTube. Like, I don't know that people want to see them, but they're there. And I think the amount kind of floods the senses. So they're like, well, there's so many songs. They can't all be about me.
Now, did you say it was 10 weeks and then every week you're writing a different song?
Yeah. So the way it functions, the first summer it was 12 weeks, 12. And then we started doing 2 sessions a year. So there's a winter session and a summer session, and both sessions produce 10 apiece. So that means 20 a year. And then I'll generally write, probably 10 more songs on the off weeks. I take some months off. I take September off from writing.
Ooh, a little break from writing.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps you reset and
makes you want it again too. I mean, it's practical. Like September, the summers are so busy because it's also so we're writing 10 songs in 10 weeks. It tends to be a very busy performance time because in Minnesota, where we live, people want outdoor music and you got to make hay when the sun shines. So like I'm generally performing more in the summer, and I perform a lot as it is. And then also my kids are home from school. So summer is just intense. Mm-hmm. And so September, there's that period of the kids going back to school that takes a little extra attention. Plus I just need to kind of regulate a little bit. And so it's made sense to me to take September off. And then I usually try to write a song in October. I write a song in November. And if more come, that's great. But yeah.
Helps you love it.
Helps me love it. And I think I'm really bad at resting as a rule. But this is one intentional rest that I've given myself. So, and it's not even much of a rest because I don't stop anything else, but I stop the songwriting for a month. So, yeah.
Does it ever start to feel like work or chore, or is it always passion and always creative flow?
Songwriting is always passion. And I wouldn't say it's always flow. I mean, there are songs, even in the course of the prompt-based writing, where I'm like, oh, I have to work through this, but it is my favorite work. It is like the most fun. There's other things about being an independent musician that I could pass on, like booking shows or like the amount of time I spend doing admin, sitting on my butt, like corresponding about small things or social media, all that stuff, take it or leave it. But the actual act of writing is 100% still my favorite. I love it so much.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of artists where artists and creatives, we don't love that housekeeping portion
right,
of it.
And it takes so much more
work.
time. Yeah. Like the percentage of housekeeping versus art making is painful when you think about it.
Now, do you have a team around you for that, or is that ever in the plan?
Maybe. I have somebody that I can reach out to for help with certain bookings, but I do most of my booking. Okay. Sarah Hirschnick, she helps also with my website. I think about that sometimes, like, it would be nice to find a way to turn things over. I mean, financially, I don't know that it would make any sense. And also, everything feels of me. So it'd be like, how do you start to separate that?
I totally understand what you mean by that. Starting this podcast has been so much work. And gosh, it would be nice to have somebody else produce it.
Right.
And me just host it. But I love the producing part, surprisingly.
Yep.
And I have this style I like now. And how do you pass that off?
Right.
Like you said, it's off you for
it
sure.
Is. So the one equivalent would be that is interesting is when I'm making a project, that is a place that I enjoy turning things over, like producing an album.
Yeah.
I hired someone to produce my last album because I wanted it to be of him. I wanted it to be of us. I wanted it to be of the intersection of the different voices and of the band, so that is an area where it is a big joy to put the financial piece behind having other people do things, because I could produce my own record, but I don't want to at this stage. So,
Yeah.
but that's like, you're getting an extra creative piece in the back and forth, of it. I don't know.
This podcast is called Art is the New Wall Street. So let's talk about that financial piece.
Let's do it.
Do you do something else in addition to singing, or is singing your full-time in?
Music is my full-time
Music.
income.
Yes, sorry. Songwriting, singing.
I mean, for me, it's like, right, it's performing. Performing is the bulk of my income. Performing or doing other, like, session work sometimes, singing harmony for other people, or helping. I've recently gotten to help with some pre-production or producing on other people's projects, which is great. And then I have a Patreon, and so that would be a piece of the puzzle. Songwriting is not a huge income for me at this point, but there would be small amounts of that might come through the PROs. Like, I'm a member of ASCAP. There's streaming, things like that. That's obviously, obvious is not the right word. For me, that is not a huge part of the puzzle. The biggest piece of my income is live performance.
Does worrying about your financial situation ever impact your ability to write songs or perform? Does it ever feel like, oh, I need to go do something else? Or do you feel pretty abundant?
I love talking about abundance and flow and money, by the way. We could do that for hours. I feel like artists don't talk about that enough. I think the only time I ever think about getting another job, one, I'm fortunate to be in a partnership with someone who is in a situation that, like, I'm also the primary, caretaker of our family. So those pieces make sense within our household.
Of course. Yeah.
But because performance-based means I need to be healthy and means I need to maintain certain kinds of hours, I'm a morning person. I'm really bad at staying up. I don't enjoy staying up late. And I have been in the last few years since COVID, like, well, how can I be a performer but still be maintaining what's healthy for me? Meaning, like, this is the amount of in-person singing that makes sense. And this is the amount of staying up late, trying to navigate that piece and make money. Every once in a while, I'm like, would it make sense for me to find some other job where when I have a cold, that's not a good example. When I, when I feel like that I could still be performing my job. Like, health is so much part of your vocal instrument. Like, I just have had 10 days where I've had a cold, and I've had 3 gigs in that time, 4 gigs, I guess. And it was, it's hard to go up and know I'm not bringing the tools to work that I want to bring, because the tool is, it's got a cold. So, so in those moments, I'm like, I always liked waiting tables. Maybe that would be nice. And I don't know. Every once in a while I get dreams. I like doing other things with music as well. Like, I've really enjoyed this producing piece. I'd love to get paid for Toilet Tunes, which is a music-based thing that does not require me to be able to sing that day, and also I can do it in the daytime. That's the other thing. Like, I'm just looking for, can I sing in the day? Where can I sing in the day? Let's do that all the time.
So setting up those things around your music. And
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Toilet Tunes, because I'm in love with this concept. I was watching some of your videos before our show. So you invite musical guests on into your bathroom, and you're covering kind of under-rehearsed songs. How'd you come up with this?
It's totally an accident. Yes. So back in 2016, I did a Kickstarter, which is another, ways that artists fund their work. And one of the tiers of rewards was that I was already recording for my prompt-based writing group in my bathroom, because you have to present your song when you finish writing it with a video, and the bathroom is the room with 2 locked doors in my house, so it's the easiest room to go hide in. So that was fully practical. And when I was doing this Kickstarter, my friend Lori backed the Kickstarter, at a level where I said I would sing a cover song for someone. I was thinking like a Casey Kasem dedication. I don't know if you remember Casey, it's probably too old for you. But he was like, you'd call in the radio station and be like, oh, I want this song for my boyfriend. So I thought I would maybe be singing covers for people like that. But Lori said, well, I'd love to sing a cover song with you in your bathroom. And I was like, well, that's wild. Let's do that.
Cool.
And so she came over. She's a very, very good friend. In fact, I just had dinner with her tonight. But she came over and we like worked up a song, cover of Emmy Lou by First Aid Kit. And we sang it in my bathroom and then put it on the Facebook right away. We're like, this is fun. Let's just do that. And people liked it. And then another musician that I was kind of friends with but didn't know well was like, hey, could I sing in your bathroom? And I was like, okay, yeah, sounds good. And so that first year, so this is 2016, I probably had like 8 people sing in my bathroom. And it was just really sporadic. And as soon as we were done singing it, we'd put it on Facebook. And it would get a lot of shares. Like was really, really fun to be a part of. And that kept going in that way until COVID. So it wasn't structured. I would try to do it. First it was monthly. Then it was like every other week. Then I would, sometimes I'd go weekly. I just kind of did it whenever, but it wasn't at a certain time or anything. And then in COVID, my bathroom is big, but not that big. So I pivoted to a show called Hey, I Miss You, which was like a setup like this where it was a split screen and but it was a live stream. It would go live and that was really fun. It was an interview series. And so then when it was safe to have people back in my bathroom, I really missed the interview piece of the other show. So Toilet Tunes sort of morphed into this piece where we do the cover and then we do the interview. And so it's a longer program now. And also I switched it to YouTube only because I wanted some consistency and some control. Not that we ever get any kind of control, but I do like that there's the dream that someday I could monetize through YouTube, maybe.
Absolutely.
And I made it so that it's in seasons now. And when it's in season, it's weekly. Fridays at noon. Are you familiar with Seth Godin?
Yes.
Yep. I love him. And I really enjoy the way he speaks around routine and dedication and, and being dependable. And I want to be dependable. So I want people to know that if they're interested in Toilet Tunes, which I think is a blast, it's there every Friday at noon. And then it lives forever because it's the internet, but.
I would like to eventually get my podcast weekly, but right now it's every other Monday.
Yeah,
which
but that's
is what
good
I can handle. Which is what I can handle. But yes, consistency is key. Often when we talk about routine or habits or structure, if you're an artist, you're like, oh, rigidity. But creating those structures and the habits and the routine actually gives you freedom to create.
Absolutely.
So I just find it so much easier to have that consistent thing built in. You got to build that structure for yourself first, though.
Yeah. The other nice thing about going to the Fridays at noon is like that's when it's presented, but I'm able to record it when it works for the artist. So there is also like I still have some flexibility, and so it's kind of I'm getting both.
What a happy accident!
The happiest of like I owe Lori everything. Because Toilet Tunes, it's been such a great way to get to know other musicians in our community because the one thing is when you go out to shows, for sure you have chances to talk to people, but it's loud and you're in a very specific mental space because you're performing or you're watching music or, everyone's talking. And so the depth of conversations tends to be different. And I'm not great in groups. Like I much prefer a one-on-one conversation. And so I've enjoyed the chance to do that with people in my bathroom and been pleasantly delighted at the amount of musical humans who have never met me before and are willing to show up at my house and sing in my bathroom. And that's how we meet for the first time.
How are you finding the guests that come on? So some of them are obviously friends like Lori, but some of these strangers, do you just find people you really like and resonate with their sound?
It's kind of both, it's often, or I should say it's morphed into a thing where I do pay attention to, I know this friend has an album coming out. Hey, do you want to be on Toilet Tunes? Can we talk about your album? Or recently a guest was Laura Hugo. Laura Hugo is amazing and I've wanted her on Toilet Tunes forever, but I ran into her at a show and I was like, hey, I don't know how this hasn't happened. Can we make it? And I've also had people that I've just kind of cold messaged and said, I think what you're doing is really great. And I do this weird thing and maybe you'd be interested. And sometimes people send me messages and say, hey, could I be in your bathroom? So there's like a lot of different paths to the toilet.
Was it when you first uploaded it to Facebook, were you like, this is called Toilet Tunes? Did you have the whole concept, or was it just like, here's a video of us playing in the...
I can't remember when I attached the name to it. And there are times where I'm like, goodness, should I have picked a better name? But I lean into it. I mean, it's got...
Oh, no.
I've got
a fantastic name, Sarah.
I've made lots of like graphics for it now and logos and it's got, it's got the standard segment that I'll have. I really love it. I really do love it. Like, I want it to grow. I want to figure out the way to have that. I just have my first sponsor right now, which is fun. Winnow MN. They are a coffee roasting subscription service, and we are doing it for trade. And I'm really excited about that. I probably should. I don't know. But I'm like, well, what are some other ways to? It's important to me with anything like that that it's organic, that it's something this, like Winnow is a company I was already supporting by purchasing coffee. So I was like, well, can I support you by talking about you? And then I have a in-kind sponsorship with a community organization from a town, an arts organization like a little bit north of here called the Wyoming Arts Council. It's got 2 A's, 2 C's, and I get it wrong. And they're beautiful people. And I love the idea of anything we do being this organic. I actually really am jazzed about you. I just want to talk about you. Like, because then it doesn't feel like work, right? I mean, it. Like,
oh, yes. So I have a marketing background.
Okay.
And there's nothing, I mean, I think a lot of creators and artists can relate to what you're saying about choosing an organic brand partners because, I mean, artists have to make money somehow.
Yeah.
And sometimes that involves sponsorships or affiliates or whatever. And, making those good decisions for your business and the right decisions that feel good, that keeps us human, and we deserve to be paid for our art. So,
yep.
So yeah, I totally get you. I want to make sure to ask you about some of the specific lyrics in some of your music. So before the show, I was listening to All Mine from your 2020 album.
Yeah.
And this is also on your website. The line, so I miss the forest every time, but I can tell you the secrets of a single pine. Can you tell me more about what you're expressing there?
That is one of my favorite things that I've ever written because it just feels like the truest thing. I do get lost. I feel like I'm lost often. And sometimes it's in big ways. Like recently I've been going through a season of kind of like restless agitation where I'm like, I feel I'm kind of lost. And sometimes it's simple as like, is it Tuesday? But even in either kind of lost, one of my superpowers has been focusing on like, oh, that's the beautiful thing in this moment. Or like, I see that sparkle in your eye right now. And that is the beautiful thing, and I get so excited about that. And that keeps me going. And quite literally, I do a lot of my songwriting when I run through this little patch of woods. I go on a run every day. And I would say not even a quarter of the run, like a fifth of the run is through this tiny little patch of woods. But I feel like I know them so well because I see them every day. I visit them all the time. And I know I run through it sometimes in fairly dark conditions, but I know the bends and the curves and I know them because I pay attention, because I see them, because I visit them every day. I wrote All Mine, put it on the album, which came out before COVID, February 2020. But then, 4 months in, I was thinking about that song as I was running through the pines. I was like, oh, I know these pines now because I'm not doing anything else, But it was really a sense of it. It's like there have been times since then that I feel like I wrote that song to keep my heart motivated and on point through another period of lost. Because for sure I'll be lost again. And for sure know exactly where I'm going again. Like I contain both things.
So tuning into that, the details in that moment helps you kind of get grounded in feeling lost in the bigger picture.
Yep. And I think motherhood is like that, right? I think there's like so much where it can feel like this big swimmy ocean of what's next? What are we doing? Who's he? What's he? And then it's like, but I know your laugh. And if I just come down to this one tiny little moment, things will make the sense they need to make.
How does motherhood intertwine with your creativity and your music?
Motherhood has changed all of that for me for the more dedicated, I guess, because I've only ever wanted to sing. That's true. That's pre-kids. I lived in Nashville before the kids. I mean, I did a lot of things to set myself up for music as a career, but I also wasn't hitting it very hard. And I wasn't writing a ton, and I wasn't performing a ton. It was all kind of at this lovely little pace, but it wasn't super serious. I don't know. I mean, living in Nashville felt serious, but when I moved back and when I had the kid, there was a sense, especially by the time Millie, so our kids are Alistair and Millie. Millie is our younger child, where I really grew clear that I wanted to demonstrate for them living into your dreams, doing the thing. That's what I wanted them to see from me. And so I started to do the thing more. It goes back to what makes you a songwriter. You're doing the thing. And so without them, I don't see that I would have, they're the constraint that I needed to like make the work,
Oh, yeah. Sometimes we need some constraints to let it all come out, actually, which sounds like a juxtaposition, but like
it's a toothpaste tube, like you need some tension in order for the toothpaste to move. I have this one tube right now that I've been working with, and it's like, why you're not working properly because there's something. Anyways, that's a horrible metaphor, but I very much need constraints. I have a tendency to get, again, back to the super big picture, like I get flooded. If there's too much information, if you show me the whole forest, I'm like, you don't make any sense to me. You are just so much, but let me just be friends with this one tree again. And then then things will start to fall in line. And so I feel like the kids give me my path, and they also give me the heart for it because I want to make them proud. I want them to see doing it.
That's an example that I think that a lot of artists wish they had when they were growing up, because I think a lot of our society, a lot of like my generation of parents, they wanted it college, corporate ladder, like Wall Street, like business success. Like, how are you going to have a sustainable financial future if you are doing art? And so I love that that's your story, and how motherhood ties into music and to influencing your children to live their dreams, especially if it's art. That's really cool.
Thanks. I mean, I was very lucky that my parents were always 100% supportive. Did you ever do the Artist's Way? If you know Seth Godin, do you also know Julia Cameron?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I have done the Artist's Way 3 times.
I've done it twice!
It has transformed my life every time. The second time I published my poetry book, and the third time I decided I was going to start as a podcast. I love artists. I love art. I love creativity. And that's who I want to be surrounded by. And that's who I want to lift up.
Heck yes.
Like, that's who I want to serve. So I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out
I love it so
how do
much.
I serve creatives? But yes, Julia Cameron, this is I think actually the third time this book has come up in the first 7 episodes.
I think it can't, it can't
It
not.
can't come up.
But
yeah.
I remember, I can like fully picture myself reading it on the treadmill at the Green Hills YMCA. And I remember reading, and they're like talking about kind of healing some of those wounds from parents who didn't support you. And I was like, oh, I actually don't have that one. Plenty of wounds. My parents were always incredibly supportive and believing of it, and never pushy, just believing. And my husband's the same way. And so I feel like I've really, in order to give that to my children, a big piece of it is like a supportive foundation around me, myself, you know.
Yeah. I want to share a story from the Artist Way that's
Yeah.
similar to that. We were doing the chapter on money in
Yes.
my group. I was like, the 10 questions that she asks where you fill in the blank about like how you feel about certain statements with money. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but we went around in our group and answered each of them, and mine were all like horrible, just horrible and cynical and mad and angry. And so was one of my other group mates was similar to mine. And then my aunt, hi Auntie Shelley, and she's the one who introduced me
Shelley.
to Graham. Shelley was like, fine, good. And we were just cracking up because like there's so many different experiences that really inspire and impact your own creative journey. And we were just like laughing hysterically at the difference between how some people feel about finances and art and how others feel about it.
Money and art is hard, and that is chapter 6, Abundance versus Scarcity, which is my favorite. Like I've read that chapter standalone, sometimes because I just need to. It took me a long time to sort out the idea, and I just struggle so much with like when you go to figure out what you caught, like what your rate is, like all that stuff is very challenging going back to like a heart piece and a brain wrapping around. Did you ever read The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer?
No, but I think that one has been recommended to me before.
That was another one that before I did a Kickstarter, because I was so scared, and still would be if I were to do that again, made me want to vomit like every day I was doing it. But it was a book that was suggested to me to kind of like get my brain right, because like even if you have these core weird like good or bad, awful, all these things, like I think sometimes you just need a coach, someone to be like, okay, you have to get through this, girl. So read this book, go do this thing, and that was the book that kind of like was like, you're going to read it, you're going to get comfortable with this thing that's really gross feeling, and you're going to go out there and do it. And yes, I feel like those two in tandem were friends.
Have you gotten the next edition of Julia Cameron's Artist Way, the Living the Artist Way?
I do have that one, but I haven't done it. I have 2 copies of the Artist Way right now because I always buy them used and then give them away to people. Mm-hmm. So the original one that I've worked through, somebody else has that, which is the thing. I'm a big fan of Austin Kleon. I love his book, Keep Going is great. Yes. Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert.
This one? Steal Like an Artist?
I have that one. He's wonderful. And Big Magic, Big Brene Brown. So Daring Greatly, all of those. Bird by Bird, Anne Lamott is a huge one. I'm thinking, I'm like looking over here. Another book that was a really good one, even though the title is You're a Badass at Making Money. Have you ever read that by Jen Sincero?
I have not, but I've seen it. In many bookstores.
It was not the basic You're a Badass, but the money one was, and I did the audiobook, was very transformative for me in
I will have to maybe read
how
that
I
one.
think about those things. Yeah.
Good books, literature. I'm also reading
love books so much.
Yes. I love the books on art and personal development and creativity and like anything that can unlock something in me. I like eat that stuff up.
Do you have a current favorite or something you recently
I'm currently reading The Creative Act.
Yeah.
By Rick Rubin.
How are you feeling about that?
I've liked it.
Okay.
I've taken some notes.
Mhm.
I could tell that he was inspired by Julia Cameron. I
He
was like,
doesn't
there's like
talk about her. He doesn't like
I
quote
went
her ever, and it makes me mad. I'm like, you're not giving props.
It's true.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off because I had some big feelings about that book. Because I
No,
felt like
but
he
you're
didn't.
right, because I was, as I was reading it, I was like, there are undertones of The Artist's Way here.
There's a part in the book where he's like, there weren't any books about creativity around. And I'm like, dude, wrong.
Right.
Do not sell this to us. And that was early enough in the book that even though he says lots of other great things, and I think it's a really well designed book, love the white space, love the cool cover, lots of good things, but I held this like bit of bitterness. I was like, why aren't you talking about Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, a beautiful book on creativity, Julia Cameron's Artist's Way? These books are already out here, and I feel like you can't pretend. It came off as arrogant.
I hear you.
I'm sorry.
I hear you, you know? No, actually, that I hadn't thought about it that way. And you're speaking to such an important part of collaboration around creativity and community around creativity, which I think you stand for a lot in what you do, Sarah.
I want to so much. I mean, not one of us ever gets where we're going on our own.
No.
That's not true,
Heck
and
no.
and I'm not writing songs that are from thin air, steal like an artist. Like, I'm writing because I've been inspired. I mean, that's the only way, because I learned by watching other people do things. Like, I didn't make any of this up.
And recently I've felt like I'm transforming. I'm doing more things. I used to be so scared of small talk and like despised small talk, and now I have a freaking podcast.
We're having big
And
talk.
all of
It's
this bold transformation that has happened for me in the last year didn't happen until I reached out to people, until I joined a mastermind, until I joined communities, until I started getting more comfortable and actually practicing conversation.
Yeah.
So I owe it to so many creative people. Why wouldn't you acknowledge the people who have helped you get where you're at?
Yeah.
You're obviously a force in the Twin Cities music scene.
Oh, I don't know. It was nice that someone said that. So I can write that down. But
I was reading an article in the Star Tribune. It was on the 10, what was the title of it?
10 best albums so far. Because it was the June edition.
Albums in the Star Tribune.
That's right. So far.
Yeah.
Because it was halfway through the year. When I moved back from Nashville to Minnesota, and I first went to an open mic here, I was very like, no, this isn't Nashville. Nashville's the best. And I had this little chip on my shoulder, and then it did not take long to be like, Sarah, you're so wrong. Like, it's awesome here. There's a structure that people can make money making music. That was not available to me in any way in Nashville. People want to play together. People want to be excellent at what they do. I just saw that everywhere. The first batch of community that I made was my bandmates, and they were all so good to me when they didn't need to be, because I didn't know what I was doing, and they were willing to play with me for not enough money and like take their thought and care with my work. Like, that was so moving to me when I was just getting started at writing songs, and I'd bring them to the band, and I was so scared because I was like, sure, this is crud and they're going to know it. And they instead would be like, oh, what if we did this cool thing here? And it was like just incredibly beautiful to me that like we would engage in this act and that they would be willing to share with me like that. And then a few years later, I just kept meeting different women who were mothers who were musicians, because I thought that wasn't real until I met my friend Vicki Emerson. And then I met Annie Fitzgerald, and like just kept meeting, as I go along. So many mom musicians are out there. Katie Vernon, Annie Enneking, Becky Capel. There's like they're all over the place. Haley Rydell, Emily Havoc, Nikki Lemire, Katie Tessman. I could go on. And then with my songwriting group, I would write no songs if it weren't for these other people.
Mm-hmm.
they don't need to do anything other than exist and write their own songs and show up as their selves. But like the magic in all of this, it's just the way people show up and say, yeah, me too. I'll do it too. Okay, let's do it. Let's just do it. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. I just want to keep being a part of things like that. You know, I really like hosting house concerts. I've been dreaming up kind of some concert series things. I've got this residency at the White Squirrel that I'm doing the fourth Wednesday of every month in St. Paul. And the reason I love it, well, one, I got to go to other residencies. Like Molly Mayer has a fantastic one. And I was just like, oh, it's like this monthly party. Like, let's do that. And what can we say with ours? And so we have guests. And so it's always a chance for me to say, hey, friends, you were going to come see me at my show. That's nice. Can you also watch this mind-blowing musician I met last week? You know, like just making those connections is really important to me because I feel fortunate for the times that I've gotten to be a part of that too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The magic happens when we all come together in pursuit of our own creative dreams and our art. And having that support just makes it flow all the better.
Yeah.
Part of your website, when you go to it right now, there's a quote from Dave Franklin, The Big Takeover. He said that your Here's to You album, 2023, is an album of space and restraint. Any note played, every word uttered feels perfectly and purposely placed. Is that how you would describe your writing? And how does those words from Dave Franklin make you feel?
I loved that. I mean, that makes me feel very honored. It's a very sweet. I love the idea that the care that we put into the making of the album would be felt. You know, something I learned from my mom way back. You know, she just, if you're going to do a thing, you're going to do it well, and you're going to put the spin on it, and you're going to see the details. And we really took our time with Here's to You. And I worked with Dave Mailing as the producer, and he's a very thoughtful and genius human. And I guess I was honored that Dave Franklin, this reviewer, said those things, because nice to think that the time you took and thought you put into something would be felt. Yeah.
I also saw on that same page of your website that you have a whole list of gratitudes that link over. And this just came to me because we were talking all about acknowledging the people around you who make your dreams come to life. And I thought that was pretty cool too, that you have that up there. But I think those are some carefully crafted words in that review as well. And yeah, I just thought that was cool. I have really enjoyed our conversation, Sarah. It's been cool to chat with you. So cool. It's so funny that we got off on the artist way.
We have to get together and have a book conversation now, because
I know.
And if
I need to come
other
to one
favorites.
Yes, I need to come to one of your shows. And I was looking on your events page of your site, but the White Squirrel is pretty close to me.
The White Squirrel is so my intention with 2024 was that I decided we would rest in residency. Okay. So much of what we do as artists is hustle. Like, hey, can I have this gig? Hey, can I have this gig? And things that I get tired of saying is, hey, can I have this gig? I mean, I'll still ask, but the other thing is, it's very hard to find a band time to rehearse, or like trying to get scheduled to mash up is so challenging. So I was like, what if we just did a monthly? What if we rested in the sense that, like, we know we have a gig once a month together and it's at the fourth Wednesday? And what if the audience can also rest in the fact they don't have to think about when I'm going to see Sarah? White Squirrel, that's the deal. So I do have other things, like a couple other, like I'm singing in some rounds with friends at some breweries, and I have some solo moments, but the main thing for the rest of the year is going to be that fourth Wednesday at White Squirrel.
And that goes all the way through the end of the year?
All the way through November, because December, the fourth Wednesday, happens to be Christmas. And my family celebrates Christmas, so we would.
And your latest album, people can find online, Spotify, that's Here's to You, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And that came out in 2023.
It did.
And any future music coming out or anything you're working on?
I'm going on a writer's retreat in May to Ashland City, Tennessee. And the dream there is that I will spend some time thinking about what's next. I have like some little things I'm working on that I'm not talking about yet, but I'm waiting to see. I have some songs I really would love to bring to album fruition.
For those that are local, my listeners that are local to the Twin Cities, or even around in the Midwest, you can come stay with me, and we'll go see Sarah together at the White Squirrel and find Sarah online. Sarah, it was such a pleasure to chat with you today. And listeners, keep creating and keep making magic. And until next time, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Art is the New Wall Street. If you liked what you heard today, give our show a follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find us on social media or at artistthenewwallstreet.com. Keep creating, and we'll see you next time.